reality, I am wearing STAX Earspeakers. Ignorant fools. Thanks to these closed covers for these STAX-SR002 Earspeakers, I can listen to these in public, and no one has to know. I have to stop filming now though. I can't go back on a list, so this will be our little secret. Ooh, what a rush. Well, here we are back in the privacy of my own home, where I can enjoy these beauties in peace, away from the judging eyes of a public that can't understand that I have needs. So on the subject of dark desires, I should say first of all that these lovely pair of STAX-SR002s was lent to me by a friend of the channel, Eugene, which meant that he actually went out and paid money for these like some kind of sicko. Though, truthfully speaking, this is the kind of product where the first time you see it, you think this is kind of stupid or just silly. But then you realize that it has a kind of charm of its own, much like a cube car or a pug dog. So what we have here is the full SRS002 system, which includes the SR002 electrostatic ear-speakers, as STAX insists on calling them, and then we also have the SRM002 electrostatic driver unit right here. As with any other electrostatic headphone, you cannot use these with a normal headphone amplifier. You must use a specific electrostatic driver, and in this case, this system is designed to only work with the the SRM002 driver unit, though it's all modular, so you can kind of interchange some of the parts, so you can use this with one of the full-size STAX amplifiers, or driver units, as STAX would insist on calling them. So I'm going to tell you why I think this system is a lot of fun, even if it is quite awkward. And to do that, first of all, I'm going to actually give you a closer look at the system so you understand how it all works. We start with the SR002 ear-speakers here, and actually this is the Mk.2 iteration of this particular model from STAX. And you may have noticed that we've got these closed covers here, which are a separate purchase. And you can just clip them off, and then you've exposed the STAX electrostatic transducers to the world. Yeah. And it is basically a miniaturized STAX headphone that goes into the ear. And this system actually comes with these silicone tips, comes with these closed covers, I believe, and an ear hook here to keep it in your ears. And surprisingly, when you wear these in the ears, they aren't particularly uncomfortable, despite their large size, because most of the body of the ear speaker sits outside of the ears, and you have these ear hooks for stability. Now they come with this headband as well, and you can get a slightly more stable fit if you use the headband. The drawback when you use the headband is that it actually pushes the two sides of the driver unit into the sides of your ear, which causes me pain in my inner ears, which is a new experience, I have to say. I have not had any earphone that has actually introduced sort of caliper clamping pressure on the insides of my ears. So I don't use this headband. I didn't really use it while I was demoing this earphone, but it does make it stay a little more securely in the ears at the cost of some potential ear pain. When you use the headband unit, by the way, it actually prevents you from using these closed covers. And I'm going to go into how I think this sounds with the closed covers and how I think it sounds without the closed covers, because it does make a difference. One thing that I wanted to point out, which was kind of neat, and I don't know if you can see it, I'll bring it up close to the camera. The way that these closed covers work is that there is a sort of diffusion panel, or this pattern at the back of the closed cover, which I think is designed to diffract or diffuse some of the sound that emanates out of the back of the transducer. Now, as you could probably guess, if you don't use the closed covers, these are completely open, almost like earbuds. They will leak sound to the outside world. And I wouldn't use these in public because, number one, you're going to expose the actual transducer to the elements, and stacks and humidity and rain and moisture do not play well together. Number one, I still wouldn't use these if it was raining in the first place. It's just a recipe for disaster. But once you put the covers on, you have a little more protection that way. Though I would say that the improvement in sound isolation with these covers is marginal. It's more that you won't leak as much audio outside, which would irritate other people. Now, these, as I said, are modular. So the way the SR002 system works is that the SR002 is distinguished from the SR003, the Earspeaker unit, in that the SR002 comes with this specific pin out configuration here, which is designed to work with this particular STAX driver. So if I give you a closer look, I'm going to focus. So we have this kind of pin, which looks very, I'm not going to say this looks great, and it goes into this thing here, so you don't inadvertently try to plug this into a normal headphone amplifier. And as I said, this is modular, so it's distinguished from the SR003 in that the SR003 comes with a different cable. It comes with the two ear speakers, but the cable terminates in the standard STAX 5-pin bias connector, which you may be familiar with from the STAX-SR002 video that I did many moons ago. So you have these ear speakers and they connect to this driver unit. And again, I'm going to say I really like this whole system in the sense that it's quite inexpensive for a electrostatic system from STAX. The whole system is under $1,000. But I have some words to say about this driver unit in particular. I would say the most charitable thing I can say about it is that it is functional. But it is not nice. And that is, number one, because the build quality is pretty plastic fantastic. As you can see, it looks like sort of like a children's walkie-talkie toy. It uses AA batteries, which sort of reinforces that notion, though it's not a bad thing in and of itself. This kind of plastic build quality is pretty on form for STAX, I guess. But the other issue that I have with this driver unit is that the SRM002, when you use it in the eco mode, which I suppose is the low gain mode, it produces this high-pitched whine. And it's an intriguing whine because as you move it around and you put it closer to devices and stuff like that, the whine actually changes in pitch or intensity. So I think it has something to do with the shielding of this unit. When you put it into the normal mode, you can't hear the whine because what you start hearing is this quite loud fizzing noise, which is not particularly conducive towards high fidelity listening. So obviously the system doesn't cost a great deal as far as electrostatic earphones go, and what you can actually do is start out with this system, and then one day you can actually get the cable separately. So you get the Pro 5-pin bias cable, and you can get that cable and attach it to the SRM252S, which is that little STAX desktop unit. And I believe you can actually get a kit with the SR002 ear speakers and that desktop unit, so you can be tethered to mains power if you so desire. And you could also connect the SR002, or I guess what it would be is the SR003, with the 5-pin Pro Bias connector to the new STAX D10 portable DAC amplifier, which I would guess is a much better combination in the sense that it won't have these kind of build quality or distortion, I guess, or noise issues that this STAX driver unit has. But that unit itself, the D10, puts the entire system cost well over $1,000 at that point. So with this driver unit, this is actually just a driver unit by itself. It's not like the D10 where there is an inbuilt DAC. So what you actually need to do is you need to use a 3.5mm line out cable or to go from a device of your choice, and you can input audio out to that. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably screaming and you're screaming something like, this is double amping or something. That's not quite true. What we really want is we want to get a line out voltage from this player into this driver. Now, the one thing I don't like about sort of analog line in systems in this sense is that you don't always know what the line out voltage is being produced by your source device. So in this case, the Sony ZX300, I have no idea if I set it to max volume on high gain mode on the 3.5 millimeter, what voltage that is actually producing and what voltage this STAX unit is actually expecting to get, because a standard line out voltage is considered around 2 volts, 2.25. So because Sony doesn't publish the spec, I have no idea what's going on in this case. I would feel safer or better off in terms of knowing that I was getting the maximum performance in terms of signal to noise ratio, going with a device that has a published line out voltage. So for instance, with the FIO units, the M6, the M7, the M9, they come with a published line out voltage and you can put them in a dedicated line out mode. I believe the M6 from FIO produces about 1.2 volts line out, which is a little lower than standard, but it would be a cute little unit to put on top of this. And then the FIO M9 produces a proper 2 volt line out voltage. And something like the Dragonfly Red, I think, is designed, if you want to use a USB sort of DAC with that, the Dragonfly Red is designed to produce an exact 2 volt line out voltage to a device like this. I don't know. It's possible that STAX has developed this line in to work with a wide range of voltages, and perhaps I haven't heard any distortion when I plug in the ZX300 into this and turn it to max volume. I get the sense that this ZX300 is actually not producing a sufficient line out voltage to the STAX, because I have to turn it up all the way and I still get a lot of a lot of movement on the volume knob I have to get before I get up to a listenable volume. Now, I've tried it using the line out from the actual Tascam recorder that you're listening to now, and this can actually put out what I would assume is a standard line out voltage. So you can do the really kind of baller thing of using a professional audio recorder to line out to this STAX unit here. But long story, the long and the short of it is that you end up with this kind of slightly awkward setup where you have the driver unit and you have the source unit. Even with the D10, the situation would get even more imposing in terms of having a larger unit. So I'm not going to make the case that this is in any way a portable setup. This is not something that you're going to wear on the street. I wouldn't advise you wear it on the street in the first place. This is a transportable setup. Maybe you spend a lot of time at cafes or libraries and you want to sit down with your beautiful STAX earphone. This is the setup that you would bring there. And as long as you are aware of the kind of awkwardness of this whole setup, you get amazing sound. So I've gushed in my earlier STAX L300 review video that I think STAX electrostatics have this amazing virtue where they sound amazingly clean and clear and bright in the high frequencies, and they have extremely fast bass transients with a lot of punch and just amazing responsiveness from the system, just amazing clarity, but at the same time they don't tend to sound harsh. So they're sort of the brightest sounding headphones that I can point to that still have a sound that I don't consider edgy or irritating to listen to. Now, I'm not going to say that that doesn't mean that they aren't bright. It doesn't mean that they aren't sort of bass light for a lot of listeners, but they are what I think is a wonderfully beautiful and at the same time smooth sound. So I would say with the STAX-SR002 and the 003, you don't actually compromise that much by going with these little sort of in-ear electrostatics, and in a lot of senses you actually, they have a charm of their own, because compared to the full-sized electrostatics like the L300, the L700, yes, the soundstage is sort of more compressed by virtue of these not being totally around ear kind of ear speaker systems. That said, when you have the covers off, you still get a soundstage which is much wider than your typical in-ear earphone, just because these are completely open, and they sort of make the case for maybe resurgence of the good old earbud design. But the STAX-SR002, I think, still has the qualities of having that very fast, open, clear sound with very responsive bass transients and very, very beautiful vocals. The one thing I would say is that maybe the top end is not quite as clear as it is on the L300, the L500, the L700, which are the stacks that I've had the most experience with. The top is a little rolled off in comparison, but I actually think that that helps this SR002 system sound a bit more like an all-rounder, because it means it still has that kind of stack speed and response, but it's a little less bright. And I find it makes it work really well with almost every genre of music that I throw at it. Everything from electronic to classical music, I think, just sounds wonderful on these 002s. And again, this system cost is less than your typical full-size stack system. So when you compare the sound of this ear speaker with the cover on and with the cover off, it's actually quite interesting, because it changes the sound, but not in ways that I would have assumed would be the immediately obvious ways in which the sound would change. Now, of course, when you have the covers on, the soundstage kind of gets more compressed, it gets more intimate, it collapses a little basically, and I personally don't really mind that. And the fact that I can compare the sound with the covers on and off pretty quickly tells me that as a reviewer, I think I actually don't really care that much about soundstage. I don't mind having an intimate sound, and I don't really love a sort of diffuse soundstage. So maybe that's why I've never been a big fan of the Sennheiser HD800. I know for a lot of people, that loss of soundstage will mean that it loses a lot of that magic, but for me, it's not a big deal. The other big difference you get when you have the covers on is not in the bass response. The bass response changes marginally, I would say. Not so much that I could even really tell you what's going on. Maybe the bass gets punchier. It doesn't really change the way the bass sounds to me by a great deal compared to that sort of closing off of the soundstage. The other biggest difference I find with the covers on is that the upper mids become more accentuated. You get a slightly more nasal sound, and you get something that's actually closer to what, say, Audio-Technica or Fostex would typically produce with their earphones. So you go from something that is still a little bright in the upper mids to something that is distinctly forward with the covers on. And again, and I've spoken with people about this, and they've tried it with the covers on and off, and a lot of them say that it sounds terrible with the covers on. Personally, I don't mind it. It sounds a little more honky when you put the covers on, but you get that kind of female vocalist lift that I really quite like with the covers on. So again, I don't mind the covers. The one thing that I don't like about the covers is actually that they add to the weight a little. So when you have the covers on and you have them sitting in your ears, you feel more of a weight with the covers on, and that's pretty much my biggest problem with the covers. It's not really the way they change the sound. This is a really weird product, I gotta say, and throughout my time listening to this electrostatic earphone system, I've been trying to figure out who the target market is, in a sense. Because these are not, this is not the most portable earphone system in the world, of course. But I think for a lot of people, this is a really sort of fun entry point into electrostatics, because you don't have to make such a big investment. And not only in terms of money, it's also in terms of the kind of desk space that you would have to dedicate to a full-sized Stax driver, where it's mains powered. You have to have it sitting on your desk, and it's a driver unit that can only power one set of products from one company. You only have this little driver unit, which you can take around with you if you so choose. It's also a system where I think a lot of people who have full-size Stax systems already they're going to get a kick out of owning a little portable system, and then they can be, enveloped in electrostatic sound wherever they go, whether it's like to a library or a hotel room or to an office or something like that. When you must have stacks everywhere in your life, and I'm sure there are stacks owners out there who feel this way, this is the way that you have the whole system on the go. I mean, you could get a STAX D10 and you could get a L700 and wear that on the train if you really wanted to, but this is slightly more practical, I guess you would say. At the end of the day, I've had a bit of time with this, and I found this unit sort of really charming. Like, it's I felt this same way about the whole STAX L300. There's a certain magic to these products, and I always wonder, is this the kind of product which is best for a self-flagellating audiophile, where you have to go make some kind of sacrifice, you have to feel the judgment of society in choosing the weirdest, most exotic product, and you're rewarded for your kind of tenacity in putting up with what's going on with this whole system. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this. I will continue to enjoy this for as long as I can before I have to return it to Eugene. And I am personally quite tempted to get the whole 003 system with the D10 somewhere down the line, and maybe an L700 one of these days. Even though I said goodbye to my L300, I constantly regret selling that driver unit, because today I could be enjoying another STAX pair of headphones. So they've wormed their way into my life. Anyway, as always, happy listening.